Hi everyone, and welcome back to Jesus Wasn't White podcast, episode 3. We've had some great feedback so far. This is we're doing a two in 1 week. And I don't know. We might make it short. We might make it longer. That's up to us. So, Adrian, how have you been in the last couple of days? Good.
In the last couple of days, I've been good. I've been really good. It's been lovely.
Yeah, nothing's upset you.
Well, nothing upsets me to my belly. Something might upset me to surface level, but not to the point where my belly's in a knot. Although there's been some upsetting things that's happened this week. Did you hear about? I know you're about to go into what we are going to be talking about. This might relate, it might not. But have you heard about the guy in America, in Georgia, that was chased down by these two white guys and lynched? Apparently, he was lynched.
I don't know the story, but I've seen brief reports of it. I've seen it because it's the anniversary today, isn't it?
No, this happened a few days ago.
Oh, it's happened. I thought this was like a 10-year anniversary thing.
No,
this is fresh off the press.
Yeah, fresh. It's just happened.
So because what I saw was something about 2 armed men just killed him, didn't they?
I believe so. Yeah.
There's no back. We've got a backstory, or we don't know.
And to be fair, I'd be a liar if I said I know a lot about it. I'm going to look into it after this.
Yeah, we'll look into it.
I was going to talk about it, but it's just because you've asked how my week's been, if anything's upset me. But just knowing what I know on surface level upset me, mate, because it's 2020 and this is still happening. I mean, I'm not surprised, but it's just horrible.
This is going to actually tie into where I wanted to take the conversation. So going forward, we are 1 day away from VE Day. Okay, 70th anniversary, victory in Europe, obviously Second World War. We've briefly mentioned Second World War and Hitler and Winston Churchill in the last podcast. But the reason I want to talk about VE Day is obviously it's an emotional time for everyone. We've all, no matter who you are in the world, especially our generation, we have a link, I think, with the Second World War. Whether it be grandparents, uncles, aunties, family members who have either died or fought or somehow suffered with what was going on back then. But the my link, funny story about VE Day is I was part of the 50th anniversary VE Day celebrations in London, and I actually swore at Chris Evans on live TV, which is hilarious. So anyway, that was my part of the VE Day celebrations. But so the reason I wanted to talk about that is because I wanted to lead into something again that I wanted to speak about last time, but I'd completely run away with me and forgot, is patriotism. And
love, great point, by the way. I don't know what you're going to say, but that's
what I want to talk about is the stigma, especially in the UK, about being patriotic. Now, for me, I love patriotism. Patriotism, is that a word? Am I saying that correct? I am patriotic. I also, people that don't know, I grew up in a very American influenced. My life was very influenced by the USA, because obviously I played American sports, up until my late teens. All my friends and family were, lived in America, from America, US military. So I grew up around a very patriotic society. Like I said, my coaches, my friends, their family members, all military, Navy, Air Force, Army. One of my baseball coaches was in Mogadishu, Black Hawk Down. He was there when it happened. So I've had this patriotic link to the USA. And then obviously the patriotic link, being British, has always seemed to be tied in with the Second World War. We learned about it in school. I'm at a generation where it was still, like I said, people were still alive when I was a child. My dad's friends, people I met, fought in the war. Now, not so much nowadays. We're unfortunately they're all in there about 100 years old, and they're slowly passing away. But we aren't allowed to be patriotic in the UK. We are not allowed to be patriotic towards England or Great Britain. There's a stigma surrounding it. It's deemed offensive. It's deemed racist. By who, I don't know. I know I know black and Asians who are patriotic. So I don't know who started this. I don't know who's standing up and calling it, prejudice, racist, whatever you want to talk about. But again, it also ties you into the USA, because every nation in the world has atrocities. The Great Britain did not have one of the biggest empires ever because they were nice. We didn't go around shaking the hands of people, to get their land. Unfortunately, it was done through, murder and pillaging and stealing the resources of the countries that we supposedly liberated, which is obviously a great term the Americans have been using for a very long time now. But I feel that as being British, we are condemned by a past that none of us living today has had a hand in. We have nothing to do with that past, but it doesn't matter how many people are trying to make up for the atrocities caused, we're never going to get away from it. People won't let it go. There's nothing wrong with remembering it, because we have to remember it. We have to learn from our mistakes, but you have to let it go. Just see where I'm coming from. Yeah, it's the whole thing of forgiveness, and you can't judge a person now because 300-400 years ago a fella on a ship flying the Union Jack raided and invaded an island. We've got to let that go. That's the history. That's the past. That's what happens, because we could do that about every country in the world. You could go back and say, oh, well, your king killed someone in 14 something. You're not allowed to be Swedish because that's racist, because they were horrible. There's nothing wrong with being patriotic. I love the fact that I live in a country where I've been provided an education. I've been provided healthcare. I've been given opportunities to work. At every level, there is work out there if you go and find it. And it's the same across the board. Whether you are rich or poor, the two things you get in this country are education and healthcare, and a benefit system, which isn't the greatest, but unfortunately it's not designed for the amount of people we have using it at the moment. But like I said, there is nothing wrong being proud. You might not, I'm not proud. I don't like all of the history that's happened. Yeah, it's not nice. These things happen, but there's nothing wrong with me wanting to say, yeah, I'm proud to be British because I've been given an education. I've been given healthcare. I've had a roof over my head, whether it was provided by the council or a housing association, or I bought it or my parents bought it. So what I want to know is, why are people still using it as a reason to put you down? Why can't we be patriotic? Who is it offending? Who do you know? Okay, Adrian, who do you know in all the cultures of people around the world? You're like me. We're so diverse. We have friends from everywhere. Like you've got you have Eastern European friends, but people will turn around and say, well, Eastern Europeans don't like black people. So you know how diverse we are. Who have you ever met that's gone, oh, there's a guy flying a flag, I don't like that, that upsets me, that's offensive?
Right, so you've made some interesting points, and you've spoken for a while, and which is great. So now I'm going to speak for a while, and I love that you brought up this topic. First of all, like I mentioned earlier at the top, because it's something that is very important and contentious topic for me, contentious subject. From the moment you mentioned that patriotism, from the moment you mentioned it, I got into a space where I could only take it to self, Cal. I can only take it to Adrian and how I feel.
Yeah, that's what I want to know. I want your opinion on it.
So I've got a list here. I'm going to go through it seriatim, although there may be a few bits I go back and forth to. But the first thing I will say, this is the first thing, Cal. There's nothing wrong with being patriotic. That's the first thing I will put at the top. There is nothing wrong with being patriotic at all. My thing is this, that patriotism is a very good thing on one hand, and also a very dangerous thing. Because what are you patriotic to? When people say we're patriotic, you're patriotic to what? The flag? Some people will say Queen and Kith and King. Some people say they're patriotic to culture. So when people say to me with such passion as you've done, my friend, and said you're very patriotic and you linked America, and I understand. At first, I didn't know whether he was more patriotic to America or England. I was like, what's he saying there? We may lose him. But what are you patriotic to? What is it? And this is not a question to answer right now. You can come back to it because I'd like to hear that from yourself. But what it is that you're patriotic to? Me, I'm patriotic. First of all, let's set this straight from the beginning. I'm not patriotic. And I like that you are, because this is the first time that we've been on opposite ends of the scale, so to speak. And we'll find a lot of crossover, because I don't think the issue's as black and white. There's a lot of grey areas, Cal. I'm not patriotic. How do I know I'm not patriotic? It doesn't upset me when England loses. That's how I know I'm not patriotic. I've never had that. I wouldn't run out and die for England. Yeah? To me, if that's what being patriotic means, then I'm not patriotic. I can't lie to you, and I've no reason to lie. It's not something I'm not proud of. I don't really care. I'm patriotic to my family. I'm patriotic to my friends. Yeah, if anyone had tried to harm my family or my friends, you will see patriotism that you've never seen before. So I'm patriotic to those things, yeah?
I just want to jump in quickly, sorry. So I agree with you on a level, but what I want to know is, okay, you said you wouldn't go out and die for England. That's fair. But like you said, you're patriotic to your friends and family. So if there was an imminent threat to this island, the place that provides and support, I know you support your family, but what I'm trying to say is the place that provides the schooling, the education, the healthcare, this island that we live on, would you not fight for that if it meant protecting your family? If there was a force knocking at our door, a regime that was trying to invade us and to destroy everything you have and you've built, would you not then fight for the flag to protect them? I'm not talking about...
Would I be fighting for the flag though, or would I be... Because
but you would have to fight under that flag. That's what I'm trying to say.
So we have to go into, and maybe this is another program for another day, but we need to really talk about the origins of flags, because that is a good point you've made. But I've actually looked at the origins of flags and fighting under that and what that does to us and what that means and the symbolism. But let's go back to that another day. In terms of, I'd have to ask you, who's the threat from, Cal? Who would be the threat from in your made-up scenario?
Another nation. If there was another axis of evil.
Give me one. There wasn't an axis of evil. First of all, the axis of evil, a lot of it's over here. It just depends on what you deem to be evil or not. So, for example, if there was a threat every day to my friends and family, which is real, it's called fast food, it's called McDonald's. That every day these are threats to my family. They're more imminent than any axis of evil. In fact, they are the axis of evil. You've got McDonald's, you've got Kentucky, you got all kinds of poisons in the water. These are real threats to my family that happen every day, and I talk about these things. So I will defend my family. There's no flag above my head, but I will defend my family and my friends. Doesn't mean anyone's going to listen to me or take me seriously. They're going to be like, I'm still going McDonald's, screw you. And I understand that, but these are the fights I'm fighting. So when I ask you, I really seriously ask you, who is the threat that is coming to
a nation? Say China, for instance. Let's just say let's just say we're talking another World War, World War III. Okay, and there was our enemy, whoever it could be, whoever joined forces. You know, or you go back to the scenario of the Second World War. If the Nazis were knocking on our door, they were actually ready to invade us. Would you then fight for your home?
To be fair, I probably would have if it was the Nazis.
Because what I'm saying is your home. This is your home.
But only, Cal, the only reason I'd fight against the Nazis is because of what I now know. Yeah. At the time, I might not have. I wouldn't like to. I don't know. But what I now know and the imminent and the threat that and the havoc and what they were trying to do, I would. But also, there's many different kinds of fights, Cal. There's some physical fights and there's...
Oh, we've lost Adrian. Hang on. So we lost you there for a minute.
Sorry, I just got a call. I'll call. It's my co-writer on the script I'm writing. I'll call her straight back. Not straight back, after the show. Sorry.
Shameless. There's another shameless plug there from Adrian.
It's not shameless. It's shameful. So if there was knowing what I now know about the Nazis, I would have gone to fight, but there's different kinds of fights. I might have not just been on the battlefield. I don't think I'd be on the battlefields of World War One because they were brutal, and I don't think that's any way to fight any kind of war. But you know, there's many ways to fight. I would like to have been a pilot, although I'd have been scared. But that's because of what I now know. In terms of an imminent threat coming, say, from pretend China, it depends. I mean, I'm going to defend my home, and if that means defending my nation, then in a way I would. But that does not to mean I'm patriotic, because if you are, then I'm not. In terms of, and I have yet to hear what you're going to say about it. But this has come a couple. What I want you to ask me is, why aren't you patriotic? Because I can say that, but you could even say, fuck off, Adrian, you're not patriotic. Yeah, and people get offended, and I've heard people get offended. This is real life, isn't it? Like, people get offended. I've never heard a black person ever get offended, first of all, but I've heard white people, and it doesn't mean they mean any harm or anything, but they're passionate and they take it personal when you're not as patriotic as they are. So what you need to ask is the questions like, why are you not patriotic?
Are you patriotic to the West Indies?
When you say, well, first of all, West Indies is a group of islands, so I'm not patriotic to a group of islands.
But, okay, so are you patriotic to the island your family descend from? Are you proud to come from there?
Jamaica and St. Lucia. Proud doesn't mean patriotic, but when you say proud, I'm proud of being me. I'm proud of what's associated to those countries that I can take, just like I'm proud of being British in terms of the good stuff I can take. You understand? It's not everything and every aspect of every country I'm proud. You know, you're just proud. So imagine if I was born in the Himalayas, I'd be like telling you, yeah, I'm proud of being born in the Himalayas. Why? Yeah, I was just born there. You understand? I'm proud of what it represents. I'm proud of there's parts of England that I'm proud of what Britain represents. Of course there is. Just like I'm proud of anything of what it represents. But in terms of being patriotic across the board, I'm so not patriotic. I know I'm not. Like I said, it doesn't upset me when England wins. So how can I be patriotic? Doesn't mean I want them to lose, but I enjoy it. And I enjoy it more because Liverpool players are there that I want to do well. And I like the whole thing. But if England lose, it doesn't really bother me. It doesn't bother me when Jamaica lose. And they lose a lot. St. Lucia lose even more than that. I don't even know what games they play. So,
you know, I've just signed the St. Lucian International.
Have you?
Yeah, my agency, and I've got another lad who's going to get called up to the Jamaican team as well.
That's fantastic. So, my uncle.
Just going off a bit subject there, but yeah.
No, but it's subject. It's all good. It's all good stuff. My uncle was the national goalkeeper for. He's passed away now. My Uncle Gregory. I met him once when I went to St. Lucia, and he was the national goalkeeper of St. Lucia for like 10 years or something. So he told me. Yeah. Nice, that's just a random fact. But in terms of saying, and you said like some stuff like, why don't we let go of certain things? You didn't do it. And my thing is this, we, and I don't mean we, there's people living in the UK Isles that still reap the rewards of what happened in terms of, to my people, slavery and whatnot. England still reaps the rewards of it. The Western world still reaps the reward of it. Now, that does not mean you should go around with a chip on your shoulder. That's just ridiculous, and that doesn't help you. But it really hurts, because we started at the top of the show talking about this guy that's been killed in America, and purely because he had black skin. And what's really horrible is that we would be able to forget much more if these things didn't still happen every day. Every damn day. There's not been one year when you can say, you know, it's been a beautiful year. There's nobody been killed. Doesn't matter what color you are. But I'm talking about people that of the African diaspora. There's not been one day when no one has been killed or been racially abused for the color of their skin. And I think if we had a day, if we had an amnesty of racial abuse, I think it would help people to forget. In terms of World War, you say that you celebrate VD Day. Is it called VD? See, I don't even know the name of it. It doesn't even mean much.
Europe. Day.
Okay,
True
Cal,
spirit.
as my friend, as my bro, I'll tell you now, it doesn't mean that much to me. Although I respect people, I will shake your hand. I respect the people because they're braver than me, and you know what? They were doing a great. They done a great thing. Doesn't mean I disrespect it in any way, but it doesn't mean that much to me because it's lovely that we don't have to keep remembering all the atrocities of Europe, but yet we still have a day to remember. I mean, will we be celebrating VE Day in 100 years from now? Will it be important to do that? Yes, England gives us a lot of great, amazing things. And like I said, this country has done some amazing stuff. You have to respect England. You have to respect the mentality of the people. I loved it. There's no wit like English wit. It's the best banter in the world. British wit. You talking about America? They don't know how to do banter.
No.
I saw a Scotsman tear Americans to shreds with his banter. They couldn't handle this.
When I travelled the States this time last year for 6 weeks, it was then no one gets you. No one gets you at all.
They don't get you, Cal. They don't get you. English wit is amazing. I love English banter. Don't get me wrong. I love many things about my American brothers and sisters as well. This is my thing. It's never a blanket dislike of anybody, of any nation. I just don't do that because nations are built up of individuals. They're built up of peoples. And our problem is when we start talking about patriotism, my problem, not your problem, but is that it becomes a blanket thing. You know how much people, this is another issue I have. You know how much people in the name of patriotism has racially abused me or wanted to fight me. I've had fights, and I've got into all kinds of situations where I've had to swing and I've had to defend myself. In the name of patriotism, I've been chased by people calling me a black bastard. In the name of patriotism, I've been told to go back to the country go back to where you come from. I heard that so much in the 80s. And I was thinking, what? But I'm in Wandsworth house. I come from here. And imagine being told that as a 7-8-year-old. I didn't even understand what they meant, Cal. This is my reality. So growing up like that, it's very hard for me to be patriotic. There's aspects I can love. I can love my friends, my family, and aspects. But in terms of a blanket patriotism, I can't. It doesn't resonate in me. It's not something I'm going to force. But if you are now, as I've got older, I've got friends that are patriotic that aren't racist. I used to think everyone that was patriotic was racist. Why? Because everybody. I used to think that. I don't think that no more. That's a ridiculous statement, and it's not true. I've got friends that are white friends that are so patriotic. They're the most beautiful people, good brethren. I'll go to war for them. They're the kind of I'll go to war for them. But I don't know about a blanket patriotic kind of England's got the best education. It's got a great education, but it's not the best education. The best education's not being taught by any one government. The best education comes from a mixture of educations. It comes from some schools. I went to university. I went to college. I went through the system, and I was successful in the system. But being in the system, I understand it's not all it's cracked up to be. The best education comes from the street, as well as aspects of school education and so all kinds of educations that you get outside of the school system, my brother.
See, I understand I think that you can have blind patriotism, which is, like I said, you blindly follow the flag or the nation. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not that.
Sure.
Because I wouldn't just fight for a flag because it's the flag of where I come from.
Sure.
Like I said, I'm patriotic and proud to say I'm British for the reasons of what it's provided me.
And you should be.
Provides. And I've travelled, I've been to other nations, even America. Okay, people go to this. I tell you what, now, if you've been to America and you go to Disneyland, it's amazing. Look at Disneyland. You go to New York. Yeah, it's great. Well, I tell you what, people. Okay. You go to the outskirts, you go to Florida and you go to the suburbs, you go to the suburbs of Chicago and you take a look at what these people were living in and where they live. And then you turn around and tell me that's one of the most powerful nations in the world. It's crazy scary how you talk about the gap between rich and poor in the UK. In America, it is crazy scary. I have seen some things while traveling the States that just make you think, wow, like how can people still survive a living? It happened with Katrina. Katrina destroyed New Orleans. And what happened? Nothing. The poor didn't get help. They just became poorer.
But guess what, Cal? They're so America is one of the most patriotic, probably next to North Korea.
Because it's blind patriotism. That's what they are blind. America has had. Okay, so this is something I wanted to say. Right now, we have a lot of problems in the UK, and sometimes I think these problems would be solved if we united as a nation. Okay, and we face them together instead of arguing against each other all the time and trying to offend or trying to label someone. If we actually all just sat down in a room and worked out and just sat there and worked out how much in common we all have together, and we could fight something as a united country. Okay, right? Like anything, if you have a group of people all heading in the same direction, they're going to achieve more than if you have 50-50
But why must that stop at
or a
the border?
70-30 split. I just want to say something to you. Okay, so that's a great situation. Now that's America's ideology. What is it called? The United States of America, because America was built up of individual colonies, and what did they do? They united them because they believed as one they would be more powerful, but they still have the biggest divide in the world, the North and the South. There might not be a physical border. They might still, or I say they fly under the same flag. They fucking don't.
They don't.
There's plenty of Confederate flags still flying in America.
And
I've seen them.
What do those Confederate flags represent? And why this border between North and South? Just because of slavery.
Ideology.
It's slavery.
It's a difference in ideology, and it still exists today.
But Cal, is slavery.
Yeah,
because that's what they fought over. That was the whole point of the Confederacy. The North, lucky for us, lucky for black people, my black brothers and sisters in America, they didn't need cotton in the North, or there would have been no fight. they weren't doing it for quite as righteous reasons that they had you believe. But economically, the South wanted the slaves. Economically, the North didn't need the slaves, and the North was still as racist as they were in the South, in many places in the South. It's a different mindset, but they still have that mindset today.
That's what I'm trying to say. Is that how does it still exist?
How does it not? It exists everywhere in the world. Why would it stop? It's not exclusive to America. Racism isn't. No, it's worldwide. And why? I mean, first of all, Americans are still the same people in Europe, aren't they? I mean, before they went to America, I'm sure they migrated from Scotland and Germany and Ireland and England, of course. And although the Americans, all of them trace their bloodlines back to Europe. Yeah. It's the same people. There's no difference.
Well, you've got to remember, it's a nation built on treachery.
But most nations are. But well, not most. Maybe that's harsh. But it's complete nation. Have you read a book called? It's probably have you read a book called what's it called? Burying My Heart at Wounded Knee.
No.
It's probably a rhetoric question because I said, does Cal read a lot? Do you read a lot?
No.
Nah. So yeah, but Burying My Heart at Wounded Knee, written by a white guy, is the most saddest book when I was little, Cal, I used to love cowboys. Yeah. I love cowboys. I love dressing up as one. I wanted to be a cowboy, me and my crew, against all these horrible barbaric Indians, barefooted Indians. I've got boots on. I've got stirrups and a gun, and you barefooted Indians coming with your bows and arrows and big noses. I hated you. I wanted to kill you all. And just me and Cal against 150 Indians, back to back, bro. We can do this. And then I grew up. Just like Tarzan. I love Tarzan. And then I grew up. And I understood this manipulation, the truth of what they did to us. Burying My Heart. I love Colonel Custer and Daniel Boney, or whatever his name was back then. Colonel Custer was one of the most evil men in history. Do you know, Cal, this is fact here, that when they butchered and broke every one of the 200 treaties with the natives of the land and wiped them out through disease and rape and murder and torture, do you know that Colonel Custer's men used to shave off the private parts, the vaginas of Indian women, and stretch it over their helmets, over their hats, sorry. These are the kind of things, and this is normal, this is nothing. The atrocities, and the Indians were painted as barbarians. No, they weren't. They learned scalping from the Americans. I never even knew that until I was in my 30s.
Yeah.
This is so... you know, the way it's all been portrayed to us, America's been built on such heinous acts, and to this day, it hasn't healed. It hasn't healed. So, but yet, black people, Asians, what they call in America, there's no Chinese or Korean, that's offensive over there. So Asian Americans, Jews, blacks, whites, whoever, they're still patriotic. They've got they're more patriotic than we are in this country. And I do think it's wrong that you're not allowed to fly your flag and be proud of it. But I don't think it's the fault of anyone but the past and the history and what was connotated to being patriotic back in the 70s and 80s. What do you think?
Well, no, but what I'm trying to say is just because someone has a flag, like you said, it doesn't mean that they're a racist.
Of course it does.
Just how every person that wears a Che Guevara t-shirt doesn't mean they're a terrorist.
Well, most people that wear Che Guevara t-shirts are not even aware of who he is.
Yeah, well, that's my point. That's what I'm trying to say to you. You know, most people that wear Ramones jumpers don't know who the Ramones were.
They don't know anything about it. It's just fashion, isn't it, to them?
And that's, you know, that I said that's what I want answered is, why do people use it? What's the point? Where does it come from? Why are they still to this day using it as a reason to call someone out? You know, that's what I want to know.
Because of the connotation in history. Like I said to you, I'm an example. When I used to see someone with a Union Jack tattoo on their arm, Cal, 9 times out of 10, you want some, you fucking want some. 9 times out of 10. That's not my fault. Why couldn't I have seen a Union Jack and that person come up to me and hold me and say, you're all right, kid. You know what? You're going to be all right, you know. I love you, kid. Why did it have to be you fucking want some? 9 times out of 10. Because I would have loved that growing up, you know.
But like you said, it's a different time, isn't it? It's different
But
culture.
This is what I remember. And this is what, it may be a different time, but it just goes to show that that's why you connotate certain things with certain things, you know. And that's through no fault of my own. Like I said, it's only that I'm in my 40s and obviously into my 20s. I realised that by the time I was a teenager, not everyone's like that. But when you're young and you don't know how to process stuff, and you're being bombarded with not just Union Jacks, but every time you hear racist language, is accompanied by flag waving, Union Jack waving. There ain't no black in the Union Jack.
So
how am I supposed to feel? How does one become patriotic when you're being told to go back to where you're from 7 years old? You know, I've got my kids. I would be horrified and mortified if anyone said to my kids are older than 7, except my baby boy. If someone, why should they come back and say, Daddy, someone told me to go back to where I'm come from? Luckily, that's never happened to them because we're living in a different time, Cal. But when I grew up in the 80s, we were always told to go back to where we come from, and we didn't understand it, and we didn't know how to process that. And at the same time, in terms of identity, what became more important to me was black identity, because obviously I've been told, why am I being told this? Oh, it's because of the color of my skin. Oh, what's different about the color of my skin? Oh, black, being black's a bad thing. So we grew up on songs like Proud to be Black. Now, if you was listening to a song called Proud to be White, nine times out of 10, you're racist, Cal. Because being proud to be white, you should just be proud to be Cal, and you shouldn't be, listen, I shouldn't have to be proud to be black. Really?
You should be proud of the achievements that you've done in your life, whether you're black or white, mate.
Absolutely, but why am I proud to be black? Why is it being black is not a bad thing? Because all my life I was told being black is a bad thing. In fact, we're still told it in this 2020. My whole life, since I've been on planet Earth, I've been told in some shape or form, through some media, through some person, through something, that being black is a bad thing.
So you go back to the negative.
Where does that end?
The negative stigma that's portrayed in the media, like we spoke about at the end of last podcast, going back to the films. That was my point. Why are they? No, but the films we spoke about in the last podcast, the British films. Why?
Yeah, but, you know, they don't have the power to affect in terms of, and I know what you're going to say. You know, it's a good point, but they don't. Those films, and we've really discussed it. Those films don't represent me. First of all, they represent a certain subculture of culture within culture, but they don't define us. So we've got to move past those films. This is a bigger conversation than those films. I'm talking about white people my whole life telling me that being black's a bad thing. So why I should be allowed to. I should have been patriotic to this country, because not only is it giving me all the opportunities it has, but the people within the islands have only shown me love. And maybe that's being idealistic, and that would never happen anywhere. Obviously, I accept that, but I shouldn't have to feel that. How can I be patriotic? I should just be patriotic. I should be as patriotic as you. I should have said what you just said.
But you're not going to be, are you? Because, like you said, you've faced negativity from an
But this
early age.
answers your question. This answers your question, as you said, why can I not be patriotic? And that's why I said, I opened it up by saying you should be allowed to be.
So,
and
this also goes to a reason for people out there who, if you're one of these people out there who put people down for not being patriotic, and you slander people for not flying the flag, you've heard it from the horse's mouth. Adrian has just told you why. There might be a reason for that.
And there might be other reasons. This is, this is my reasons, and any black person I know. In fact, Cal, this is sad. This is more sadness. Sorry, but I don't have one single friend of color that hasn't been racially abused.
Yeah,
that's just normal. I mean, we laugh at it. My friend, I'll never forget. We just came out of college. We were 17 years old, and we were crossing the road outside Hammersmith and West London College, Glidden Road, I think it's called. We was crossing the road, and a taxi nearly run him over. My friend said, "What are you doing?" And the guy said to him, "Fuck off, you black bastard." We laughed. Because, like we hear it so much, like if you know the amount of racism I've heard in England from people, casual and harsh.
I stepped out of a shop in Ladbroke Grove, and a black guy was riding his bike down the pavement, and we just missed each other, and he turned around and said, "Watch out, yellow face."
Yellow face, Yeah. You say, I'm not Chinese, I'm white.
That was the first time. I was 17 years old. So 17 years old, walked out of a shop in Ladbroke Grove, nearly walked straight into this, and he wasn't much older than me, and he turned around and he went, "Watch out, yellow face." And that was the first time in my life I've ever experienced anything like that.
Did he
and I'll tell you what, it set me back. I thought, wow, like I think when that opened my eyes that was the first time in my life my eyes have been opened to how racism can affect you. Because I took that, and for that the way it made me feel when I got home and I thought about it, and I thought, wow, if someone just calling me yellow face makes me feel that angry inside, turn the tables. What must it be like to go through that every day?
Wow,
every day.
Thank you, brother.
But also another thing. I don't. That guy wasn't racist. He just said it in jest. Okay?
Sure.
So how much would you say is actual real hatred, real racist hatred, compared to stuff said in jest or stuff said because they know it offends?
Well,
we joke about it, okay, because we're friends, okay. We make jokes out of the stereotypes. We have done from day one. You, and everyone's always made when I'm in the scenario with you guys. I'm always the brunt of the jokes of being the white racist. Do you know what I mean? We always make fun of that situation, but it's friendly banter. Like you said, people won't get it. People certainly outside of the circle won't get it. I've had friends I've had colleagues who are best friends, again, black and white, and the way they spoke to each other, if you didn't know them, you'd be like, wow, you'd be on the phone to the police. Do you know what I mean? You'd be like, this isn't right. But how much actually I wouldn't say the world, because I do believe there are in certain countries, there is a real hatred for that. And I think you can see that in a lot of the countries that aren't as diverse as we are in the UK. But going back to the UK, how much of it is actually real hatred, and how much of it is just stupidness, spur of the moment, said in jest because they know it's going to offend? Do you know what I mean? Like said in anger, words said in anger. That's
but this is the thing.
Real...
How do you measure it? Because that's a very good question.
That's what I mean.
How do you measure it?
Okay, that's what I mean.
I can only answered that in terms of my experiences. And let me tell you now, I've had the full 360 degrees of what you just outlined.
Yeah.
I've had it in jest. I've had it all the way around to people that actually want to kill me, and I've had to defend myself. Let's just leave it at that. Yeah.
This is what I'm trying to say. Is when people call out a celebrity for it. Okay, I'm going to say my beliefs are 99% of the celebrities out there that get called out for something like this, like a Jeremy Clarkson or whatnot, or a Boris Johnson. I think most of it is said in stupidness.
Bullshit.
It's said in jest.
That's bullshit. Because first of all, if you're I'm not going to talk about Jeremy Clarkson yet, but if you're a Boris Johnson, then you should be nuanced enough to know that you don't say certain things in jest. So, for example, when you talked about pickaninnies, you thought that was jest?
No, I don't. Well, no, because like I said, like you said, is I think it's ignorance. I think it's
that's true.
Blind ignorance, because like you said,
but that all goes back because
he should know better. But then he also grew up in an environment of. I've been to Eton. I've worked at Eton School. I used to look after the kitchens at Eton. I know what it's like. Okay, and you got to remember, I'm not black, but I'm a 6-foot white man covered head to toe in tattoos and facial piercings.
Sure.
I felt the prejudice being in that environment.
And that's my point.
And that's not the only school I've been into where you're not allowed. I used to look after a school in Henley-on-Thames. Private girls' school, and I was not allowed on the premises ever. I had to gain entry via a back door where I wasn't seen by anyone. So I have felt it, not in the scale that obviously you would have felt it, but that's just blind ignorance.
But when does ignorance blend into racism? Because I can be ignorant and come in and talk about, you white bastards or whatever. At one point, you're going to be. I mean, first of all, he wasn't 10 years old when he said it.
No.
These people live very, very sheltered lives, and this is the problem. This is why it's hard to be patriotic, because if I can't be on the same side as Boris, me and Boris have nothing in common. And first of all, Boris wasn't even born in England; he was born in America. So me and Boris definitely have nothing in common. Nothing at all. Me and him would not be on the same side. Boris is racist. He uses racist language. He doesn't know any black people. If he knows any black people, he thinks they're subservient to him. And you can tell in his language. You can tell in his demeanor. And there's many Borises out there. Clarkson, how do I know he's not in his kitchen calling every second person he sees on TV a black bastard? How do I know? I can't put my my hand in fire for the likes of Jeremy Clarkson and celebrities. When you said 99% of them are not racist, I think 99% of them probably are. And if they're not, they say very racist things, the ones that say racist things, because it would never come up in my vernacular. I would never be accused of racism. And have I said racist things in my life? I probably have. Of course I have.
Yeah, in anger.
I'm not racist.
In jest.
In jest.
We've all done it.
We've all done it. I've probably even done it in. I remember this really happened to me. I remember when I was about 13 years old, I got on a bus and there was a white guy on the bus with it must have been his missus, his black girl. I was about 14. This black woman. So it was a white man and a black woman, mixed couple on the bus, and I was on the top of the bus with a lot of all my junction lot. There's a lot of us on the bus, about 20 of us, and we started making fun of them, Cal. And we started singing, "We shall overcome." We were singing and mocking them. No one troubled them, because we'd never go that far. But we mocked them for being in a mixed couple. You know how ashamed of that I am. And I asked God for forgiveness for doing that. And I prayed that that couple was still together. Because I was just stupid and ignorant and following a crowd. But that wasn't my heart. And I would never mean anything like that. I can't hate anyone based off the colour of their skin. I can't.
Would you say
judge anyone based on the color of their skin? It's not in me.
Now,
but these celebrities, they don't, like you said, he grew up in Eton. I mean, listen, yeah, man, you don't like black people.
There's two things I want to say quickly. One before I forget to say. But would you say, okay, let's go back to mixed couples. In your experience, would you say that there has been more of an issue from the I can only use Caribbean and white British as an example, because that's it's the only example I have that I've seen. Okay. Would you say that the traditional Caribbean family has more of an issue with a white woman coming into the family, or the white British family, in your experience, would have had more of an issue of a black man coming into the family?
Definitely the white family having a more of an issue. But that's changed in terms of, so for example, and this is a good question, Carl. Oh, you're on it today. You're asking some.
Well, I want to explain.
I love it.
I'm telling you why, because this is my and again, this is my experience, and like I said, we can only go on our experiences in life. And people say, you know, when I sit there and I hear someone say, oh, you know, I wasn't accepted into the white family, and I disagree with it, but I can only disagree with it because my experience, and my experience is simple, is in the 80s, you know, my mum's family, we're from the countryside. I was born in Somerset. Very, very out of touch with.
I spent time in Somerset. Very nice, cider.
But, you know, very out of touch with multicultural city living. Okay.
Sure.
To this day, you go down there, you go to the village I'm from, there isn't a black man. Okay. So in the 80s, one of my aunties married a Caribbean, and my other auntie married a Scotsman. So you go to this village, this down village in Somerset, right? The only black man there was my uncle, and the only Scotsman there was my uncle.
Yeah.
But it was actually the Caribbean family that had the issue with a white woman coming into their family. We had no issue. This was this for me. I obviously was the first black guy I'd ever met. Born in Somerset. I was like, wow, he was good at football. He was good at football. He was good at cricket. He could play the trumpet. He was a teacher.
Wow.
Very intelligent man. He's a head teacher now down in Peckham, I think. And that's, you know, from my experience, we was welcome him, and we came from an environment that didn't know multiculturalism. It was frowned upon. If you went into a pub and you was different, you were looked down upon. But it was actually the other way around, and you know, it was his family that had their backup about it. You know, his Caribbean parents, and then they were you know, they'd obviously emigrated to the UK. But that's what I mean. That's from my experience, and like, I've never seen it the other way around. Have you got any more case studies than that, or was it just that one? Look, I've got loads of friends in diverse relationships, but I don't know about the ins and outs because it's none of my business. Obviously, this is family, and you know, as I didn't know this as a child, but obviously as you grow up and you speak to your family, and you know, they open up about why relationships fail and stuff like that. But I've heard it. Don't get me wrong. You know, you hear. I've been in some rooms with people, and they say, and I'm talking white people, and they say things, and I look at them, and I do look at them sometimes, and I look at them, and I think, you know, you don't really believe that, but you're hiding behind a persona because you think you're fucking tough.
Do you ever pull them up?
Yeah, sometimes I do. But it depends on the scenario, because again, sometimes is it really worth the hassle? None of these people are my age. We're talking a man in their late 40s and 50s. I'm not going to go have a punch up with an old man because
punch up. Pull up.
Because he says no, but yeah, that's what I mean. They get defensive because they're hiding behind this persona that they think they must believe. They think they have to.
Someone needs to tell them.
They have to act like that. You know,
someone needs to tell them. Someone needs to speak to them and say
they do get to. And unfortunately, you know, my mum's former partner was a South African, and it was rife, and it was.
Yeah, I've had my experiences with South Africans. Believe that, you know, once just hold that thought. A South African girl that I worked with at an unnamed place, I'm not going to say, yeah, and Cal, she was one of the most stupidest people on planet Earth. Mm-hmm. You know, I said to her, "Don't be so." What's the word I used? I can't remember the word I used. Oh yeah, I said to her once, "Don't be so why are you always so transparent?" She said to me, verbatim, she said to me, "Adrian, you're always using big words on me." Anyway, that's not the point of the story. The point of the story, this woman, she was from a place called London in South Africa, one of the most stupidest people. I taught her and trained her everything she knew in that job. And because I'm who I am, a rebel, because of who she is, an angel, they promoted her. And then she ended up training me. And she said to me, Adrian, this is ridiculous. I trained you. You trained me to train you. But that's the politics of work. And, you know, we can go into that another time and how racism is rife in the workplace. But anyway, this woman said to me one day, and I shit you not, this is what she said to me. She said, Adrian, you're not like the blacks in South Africa. You're so intelligent. And you know what? I didn't dislike her, Cal, you know. I pitied her because she was stupid. But imagine
okay,
that.
But I want to point something out. She's got a point, to the point where I take this to, it doesn't matter whether you're black or white, because if you go over to America and see...
What point has she got? What
point? I'm going to start trying to explain to you, okay? If you go over to the States and reverse it and look at the majority of the people that are the ones that are spouting this nonsense, and they're burning fucking crosses on their lawn, and they're wearing pillowcases with their eye holes cut out, they're uneducated. Very uneducated. They come from poor backgrounds and they're not educated. Now, I see her point, because if you actually, how a lot of Africans aren't educated. They don't.
When you say Africans, what do you mean? You can't say Africans aren't educated. Or Africa's, there's 100 million people. When you say that,
okay, I say the black community in South Africa. But that's not their fault, because they were under apartheid for so long.
No, but that's too much of a blanket statement. For example, there's some of the most intelligent people I've ever met come from South Africa. How can we then say that's like saying everyone in England's racist? It's just a ridiculous statement. Excuse me. It's a ridiculous statement because, and first of all, she said it from a point of view that she thinks she's superior to the black people in South Africa. Because you'd never say a blanket statement. I would never say a statement like that. Oh, a lot of the white people are stupid. That's just ridiculous. I mean, how can I then look at a blanket of people, treat them as a monolith, not that they're made up of individuals? To me, that's one of the most stupidest comments I've ever heard.
But the problem is, because they were under apartheid for so long and they weren't educated and they had to turn to crime, that's how they're perceived by these.
But how do we know that she looked at any of them or spent time with any one black South African long enough?
Because they won't. They don't. That's what I mean. The divide is still there.
But she's not qualified to say that.
Because that's what they're being told in the media.
Exactly. So it's nothing to do with the truth. We can't make blanket statements. We can't go around and saying that South Africans just by default are black South Africans are stupid. Nelson Mandela wasn't a stupid man, and he was locked away for 25 years, had no access to nothing. So we just got to be careful. And when you say that in the spirit like that, we've really got to be careful about what we're saying. Like I said, I didn't chastise her. I told her off, but I didn't tell her off because I felt more pity for her. I've got a big heart. My heart went out to her in terms of her ignorance, because to be that ignorant, and she was from an affluent family, but to be that ignorant is very sad, Cal. It's a very sad thing to think like that, because you're cutting off opportunities.
That's the environment they're raised in. And I said, if you go to certain states in America, that's the environment the white people are raised in, that they are so fucking stupid because they're uneducated. They don't go anywhere. They've never left their town. Sure. All my American friends, and I say not all of them, I do have some friends who have never left the States, but I'm talking 95% of my American friends who I all consider as family. I do love all of them. The difference between them and your average American is because they're military, they've traveled, okay? They've lived in other countries. You know, I've got friends who were born in America, grew up in Germany, Saudi Arabia, England, went back to America. They've seen the world outside of that USA bubble which exists.
That's because they don't watch anything. I mean, most of them don't have passports, do they?
No, that's what I mean. They don't leave. But then why would you have to leave if you've got a country that has everything? Let's be honest. If you want the beach, you can go to the beach. If you want mountains, you can go to the mountains.
But where you get told nothing. So you're right. In terms of location, it's got everything. You've got mountains, you've got snow, you've got Alps or mountains.
But it goes back to the blind patriotism. Land of the free. They're probably the most unfree nation in the world.
No, it's a hypocrisy.
Look at their incarceration rates. Look at the fact that they said they never leave. Some of them never leave. They never know what's going on. You walk into a bar as a British man, and they're like, wow. And then it's boom, you're there for hours, questions, this, that, and it's like, yeah, you're crazy.
You know, like it's you know what's so funny, yeah? When I'm back in the day when I used to debate Americans online about stuff, you know, hip hop, mainly hip hop, and you know what they'd say to me, and this was a cuss. I think they were cussing me. You tell me. They'd say to me, "Go and drink tea and fuck your queen."
Yeah, the tea and crumpets and all that malarkey.
And I'm like,
it's
no one
ridiculous.
No one gives a shit about the queen.
But that's the difference. That's the difference in the banter. It's like in America, someone will be like, you know, like we have that have that scenario, and I'm there with my friends. So I travelled the States with my best friend Colin, who I've grown up with since I was 10, 11 years old, and my other friend Jimmy, who I've grown up with since I was 10 years old. He's lived the majority of that time in the States now because his parents were based here. He's seen it. He grew up. He's actually more of an English guy. You know, he supports Queen's Park Rangers. He follows the England football team. He wears an England football top. You know, he loves all of that because he sees that nation. He's proud of his American heritage. Don't get me wrong, but he's very proud to be of England because, like I said, because that was the nation he grew up in from I think he came here when he was 5 till his early teens. That's where he sort of, you know, that where you become aware as a human, didn't you? You go from a toddler to your early adult stages, your teen stages. And he's very, very proud because, again, of the country he grew up in that provided something for him. And he loves just the way we are, the banter and the stuff like that. So we're traveling America, and like I said, you get into a bit of banter and they try and cuss you about tea and crumpets, and you sit there and I'm like, pal, I'm like, that ain't offensive. I'm like, this guy goes and tells me to fuck my mum every other sentence.
Yeah,
I'm like,
exactly.
We don't get offended by that, bro. Like, that's
you
need to up your game. Yeah,
you need to up it. You need to up it. You know, I couldn't wear an England top until recently. You know, when I was little, I'd never wear an England top, Cal. No.
What? Because you didn't like to, or you was worried about
the response
you might get.
I never connected to it. I'd wear a Liverpool top any day, but I'd never wear an England top. And I just thought, but I do now. I bought my kids England tops. That's what I'm saying. I'm older now, Cal. I know more. I understand more. But when you're traumatized your whole life, there's no connection. And in terms of,
that's why you're. We spoke about this. Do you remember? I remember years ago, and I always remember, and I knew you supported Liverpool. And then I'm on Instagram and I'm like, oh, his brothers support Liverpool. Oh, his cousins support Liverpool. Oh, friends of his cousins support Liverpool. Friends of his cousins' friends support Liverpool. And I was like, how the fuck does everyone that grew up in Winstanley and Plough Road support Liverpool? And I remember saying to you one day, we was on a film shoot, and I said, Adrian, why do you and every black person you know you support Liverpool? And you just looked at me and you went, John Barnes. John Barnes, because you could relate to him at the time.
Relate to somebody. There wasn't a lot of players, and remember they were throwing bananas at John Barnes, and he'd kick them off the pitch, and he was amazing and Jamaican born, and we could relate, and it gave us something. Remember, we needed that in, Cal, and I never had that in growing up for England. I never had that in. I never had that person that had all the tattoos, was a skinhead and loved me and was like, you know what, geezer, you're all right. And believe me, Cal, I am not saying they weren't out there, because that would be another lie. Now I know, growing up, there was plenty. I was taught by this white guy who had tattoos all over him, and he grew up fighting the skinheads. He was against racism, you know. So I'm not saying these people aren't out there. I didn't meet them.
But do you? So again, I'm glad you said skinheads, because unfortunately, everything ties in, like symbolism. I think symbolism. We spoke about the swastika. The skinheads
come from Scar movement. They weren't.
That's what I'm trying to say. The skinhead movement was hijacked by the racists. I know you know as well as I do. I know black skinheads.
Me too.
To this day, they still wear the braces and the boots and the jeans and the Fred Perrys. If you go to the mod shop in Camden, you see black guys buying the Harrington jackets and everything.
But you know, music bridged that gap, because you know they were into ska music, which was Jamaican influenced, and there was a big skinhead movement. It was a lovely movement, and you're right, it was then hijacked. And when I grew up, by the time I came onto planet Earth, although you think I've been here before or I've been here since, but by the time I officially in the record books in the government birth record, according to my birth record, by the time I came aboard, Skinners were synonymous with racism.
Yeah.
And you know what? Just to answer, because you asked me a question, I just remembered I didn't answer it when you said, "Do I know black families or white people that came into black families and it was accepted?" And I will say that growing up, there were some issues in terms of, first of all, let's be real. Of course, there's West Indians that didn't want their son or daughter going out with white people. Of course, that's not up for debate. And there was plenty. Remember, I told you last time there was a lot of friends at school that told me that they wouldn't let their daughter go out with a black boy.
Yeah.
This is, but I've got a lot of mixed race nieces and nephews, like loads, loads, and all our families are blessed. There's no issues. You know, we don't know. But if you speak to any of my brother's white partners or my sister's white partner, they will tell you along their family line there are people that wouldn't have been happy. They will always tell you, but immediately it's never a problem. But of course it exists, and I do believe that there's more black people that have been stereotyped. My cousin, yeah, I won't tell you his name, but my cousin had a white girlfriend, German white girlfriend, a German white girlfriend, and I don't know what took this. My cousin went to Germany to meet her family. He went to not Hanover, but some village in Germany to meet her family. And she said, "He'll be fine," and whatnot. And he asked her the questions like, "Is it going to be okay?" And she said, "No, it's going to be fine. It's going to be good." So my cousin gets into the house. The mum's lovely to him. The dad's lovely to him. But they wanted to feel his hair a lot. They wanted to touch his hair. And that's very rude. That's very offensive for black people. You want to touch my hair? What are you trying to do? And then her brother came home. Her brother came home with these sweets, these black sweets. And he proceeded at the dinner table to laugh at the sweets, point at his maybe potential brother-in-law, and call these sweets the N-word. He said that's what these sweets were called. And then he pointed at him. He said it was the worst experience of his life. They broke up. He flew home early. So these things, I know that was Germany, and I don't know what
I've seen the worst case of racism I've ever seen in Germany.
Is it?
We was in a bar. It was England, Mexico. There was at the table, on our table, there was 3 English guys, and 2 Americans, a Mexican, and a woman from Belgium. So
all white except the Mexican.
Yeah, but even then he was like tanned Mexican.
He was tanned. What? Yeah, okay, Mexican white.
At the bar was a kid. I say kid. He was only 18, from New York, and this was his first posting as a US Marine.
Black guy.
Yeah. So he was standing at the bar, and then on a few stalls down was another white American in his 40s, quite high ranked. I'm not sure what military, but he was quite high ranked in the US military. And the day, it was, I can't remember the day, the actual year, but it was all in it. But it was the 60th. Obviously, it's today's the 70th. Tomorrow's the 70th anniversary of VE Day, so it's the 60 something. Let me try and think.
Sure.
Would it have been? So if this is 70, so it might have been 63rd year. Yeah, so I think it was the 63rd anniversary of Hitler's demise, Hitler's death. Mm-hmm. Okay, and there was loads of stuff in the media about it. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Germany. Okay, I've been there a few times. I've been to Oktoberfest. I love it. I've never had. I've had a few issues in Germany, but again, it's mainly through ignorance, through young lads. You know, oh, you're English, giving you a bit of shit. Just how over here when you're a teenager, you'd give a German a bit of shit because you know Second World War, all that bullshit. So we're in this bar, and this guy comes in. He's wankered. He is so drunk, it's unbelievable. And they shouldn't have been serving him. They should have kicked him out. Okay, so he comes stumbling in at the bar, and he speaks very, very broken English. And he turns around and he looks, because he scans the room. Because what does he see? An easy target, young black guy. All right. He turns around and he looks at him and he goes, hey, 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 hey. And the guy's there, you know, he's enjoying a beer again, 18, he can drink, not like in the States, you know, first experience out of his country. And he's going, hey, hey. And he was a big guy. I mean, he was built like a brick shit house. So this lad was 6'3". He didn't look 18. He was, I said, he's a Marine, for God's sake. He was fit. And this German guy was fat, tubby thing, right? And his t-shirt was like tight on him. and he's going, hey, 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 hey. And the guy's like, yo, what's up, buddy? And he looks at him and he goes, where are you from? And he's like, Brooklyn. He's like, no, where are you from? Brooklyn. He's like, no, Africa. And I knew straight away, and I was like, this isn't going to go well. And you know what I'm like? I'm very aware. I can, and I've obviously zoned into this. My friends are watching the football, and I'm like, look, I'm saying, look, this has got to stop. All right. And obviously everyone's ears picked up. And he's like, no, Africa. And the guy's like, yeah, okay, whatever. And he goes, hey, do you know Smokey Robinson? All right. And the guy's like, oh, fuck's sake. He's like, whatever, man. And you know what? Me being me, and I'm like, right, I've got to do something about this. So I walk up to the guy, but he's so drunk, and I stand to him, my chest to his back. Right. So I'm breathing on his neck, waiting for him to turn around to feel me. And he was so drunk he didn't realise. So I spoke to the barmaid so he could hear my accent, and then boom, he understood, and he turned round, and wow, he straight away, he was going on about Hitler. He was trying to tell me how his grandfather was in the SS, and he was berating this black kid. I'm not going to repeat the things he was saying. And I didn't get aggressive. I humiliated him by being funny. I was just giving him witty responses, you know, about Hitler and the Germans, just the arrogant, yeah, we beat you and all this sort of stuff.
Sure. And
in the end, nothing physical broke out, because he might have been drunk, but he wasn't stupid, because he was surrounded by, you know, 25 blokes all over 6 foot.
Did anyone buy you a beer after that?
Well, no. So what happened was, eventually, I think I pushed him and he stumbled out. And I said to the girl behind the bar, I was like, look, I don't know how you do it in this country, but if he comes back in here, he's out, sort of thing. And I said to the guy, I said to the kid, I said, like, you all right? He said, yeah. And I said, yeah. I said, look, I can only apologise. It's not right. And he said, and he looked at me and he looked dead face, looked me in the eyes. And he was just like, every day, buddy, every day.
That's what I'm trying to tell you, pal.
And I said, why the fuck didn't you knock him out? I was like, you'd have torn that guy apart. He went, I can't. He goes, I'm not allowed. And then the other guy at the other end, the white guy who was an officer, he said to me, he said, look, he said, unfortunately, they don't like us as much around here anyway. He said, the only reason we're kept around here is because of the economy, because how much money the Americans pump into that economy of that small part of Germany. And he said, you know, they're looking for an excuse just to get rid of us, to kick us out. And he goes, and we can't react to that sort of stuff. But okay. Yeah, it was the kid. I said kid, he was a young adult, but he was just like, every day, buddy, every day. He goes, a stupid drunk man. And but what was cool is he didn't say stupid drunk white man.
Sure,
he just said stupid drunk man. He goes, this every day. And he knew he could have killed him. He'd have put the guy in hospital, you know. And that was just like, and that's not so much because, like I said, I'm getting offended, but that's irrelevant to whether the guy is black. It's treating another human like that.
Yeah, but then why
treat a person like that?
Why did you feel the need to say sorry on his behalf?
Because why should anyone have to be put up with that?
But why should you be sorry?
No, I shouldn't be, because it's wrong.
You're right, but I'm just wrong. Really
and I think sorry, because if the situation was different, if it was my place or I worked there, it would have ended a lot quicker.
Sure. I mean, you've done a good thing, but that kind of harks back to why we're not patriotic. And in England, I mean, that man's obviously patriotic to America, but like I said, as we've got older, it's become a bit more easier to become patriotic because you see more and you know that there's more to this country than just the bad things that we experienced. But it's not because of the country, it's because of the people in it and because of good people I've met. I've met the best British people ever, like British to the bone. I've met the best Germans. I've met some amazing German people, really amazing, lovely, good-hearted, beautiful people. And the thing is that our problem is that we can't see past color. So, for example, when you said, "Oh, maybe the girl's got a point about South Africans," if we could see past color, we can never make statements like that because it's not down to color, it's down to economics and, like you said, apartheid. First of all, we can't blanket statement anyone, and we do it. Yeah, we can make generalizations and we can make some stereotypes are cool, but saying all white people are racist is ridiculous. And if I was a white person and I stepped into a white person's shoes and someone said all white people are racist, I would be really offended because it's not true. And I wouldn't be racist, whether I'm black, white, Asian, whatever. I'm not a racist person in terms of, like I said, I've done stuff that has not been very nice. I've done stuff that, like I said, what I've done to that mixed couple on the bus, that was a racist moment. Yeah. But I'm not racist. And I know white people that have said things, you black bastard, and they're not racist. We've all done it, you know. We're not. We've all got that little racist, not right, but you know what I mean. It's not black and white. There's a lot of grey areas, but I would never judge someone on the colour of their skin.
No, but that's what I mean. But that's what I'm trying to say is how much of it is said simply just to offend someone.
Well, that was.
If I wanted to really offend you, I could say some sort of horrible stuff. It doesn't mean I believe it. But if I wanted to offend you, upset you,
yeah, of course.
if I hated you as a person, you know.
Yeah, but then is that hate based on you knowing something? Or is it based on you hating yourself? So, for example, I
don't like Sol Campbell. I don't like him because he's
black. It's not like
because of his attitude.
Yeah, exactly. But that's different. But that's different to Ron Atkinson calling Marseille Desailly what he called him.
Yeah, that's just stupid.
That's just insane. And that case in point in Germany, when the guy came into the bar, was he racist or was he just drunk and he didn't mean it? You tell me. You were there.
I couldn't tell you. He was.
Well, you said he had SS links and Nazi links. So
if you're going to tell me, yeah.
Yeah. So if you're going to put a case together, I'd kind of score him on the racist end of the chart.
Because if he was drunk, why didn't he pick on anyone else that was there?
Exactly.
He could have said anything to any of us. Yeah. But he picked on the minority, to use that word. That guy was the minority. He was the youngest guy in the bar, and he was the only one in that area of the bar that wasn't of a white complexion.
There you go.
Like I said, you wouldn't really notice it with the Mexican guy because he was just like really well tanned. Sure. He didn't look like he had. Yeah.
And all it comes down to is skin pigmentation, really. But to this day, we're having leaders like Boris Johnson sitting there talking about pickaninnies and all kinds of letterbox people. The kind of language that these so-called educated people use makes me remember every day. It's a reminder that nothing's changed in England. No, we're not getting chased down the road by skinheads like my dad did in the 70s. My dad was from Battersea. He was getting chased down the King's Road by skinheads regular in the 70s. That was so normal. They need to find inventive ways to outrun the skin, or they beat them up.
You go back to the politician side, and you said earlier that you don't relate. You have nothing in common with Boris Johnson, and that's something I wanted to ask you. We'll make this the last subject. We'll end on this. Again, it's another.
How long have we been going, Cal?
Hour and 15.
Wow, it's been a breeze. It's been a breeze. It's been a breeze.
So I wanted to mention this guy. I forgot. And I want to take it back to, you said you got nothing in common with Boris Johnson. I have nothing in common with Boris Johnson.
I didn't think you did.
Who in the political movement, what politician do any of us have anything in common with?
That's a good question.
Sorry, I just want to finish
brother.
And then you jump in. So, again, I would consider myself certainly when I was able first became able to vote, I Labour. I'd have been a Labour voter. Did I know what they stood for? No, because I didn't know anything about politics. Why did I vote Labour? Because I thought that's what I had to do as a working class Briton. Okay. But like we said the other day about the far left becoming the far right, Labour's biggest issue now, what I believe, is they no longer stand for what they should stand for. Now look at their new leader, Keir Starmer.
I don't even know who he is, man. Who is this guy?
Watch him. Okay, so let's say
horrible.
Keir Starmer was the head of the CPS who did not prosecute Jimmy Savile.
Well, there's a surprise.
Okay, their police went to the CPS with all the evidence while Mr. Savile was alive, and Keir Starmer was the head, and they did not prosecute Jimmy Savile on 3 occasions, I believe. I might be wrong, but I believe it was 3 occasions. This guy is now the head of the Labour Party, who's voted in the head of the Labour Party. Watch his acceptance speech, his mannerisms, and the way he speaks when he's giving an interview. Do you know what it reminded me of? Fucking Tony Blair. Remember when Tony Blair won in '97? Things can only get better. Yeah. And he came on and he gives them speeches.
And he was more Blair. He was more Blair Witch Project.
But he's very robotic.
Yep.
And he pauses at really strange moments.
Yeah.
And he talks like this. He's the fucking spitting image of the guy, but he's trying to portray himself as this working class. I'm one of the lads. We're going to make a difference. And I tell you what, and it's funny because I think it was Piers Morgan that called him out when he turned around and said, and this Keir was like, I'm no millionaire, I'm not rich. And Piers was like, how much is your house worth? And he said, well, I live in North London with a 4-bedroom semi-detached house. And Piers Morgan's like, well, so your house is worth over £1 million then. And he's like, oh, yes, now it would be, but not when I bought it, but now. And he's like, well, you're a millionaire. No, the mortgage company owns my house. I pay the mortgage company, they own it. And they were like, he's like, no, you're a millionaire. Your assets make you a millionaire. You live and have a mortgage on a house which is over £1 million.
But I don't agree with that, Carl.
That's an asset.
You know, like people I know,
but what I'm trying to
house over £1 million, and they're not millionaires.
No,
listen, you can live in a 1-bedroom shack in Central. You don't.
No, but this is what I'm trying to. That it does make you on paper. Your
no,
assets.
but you're not.
Millionaires doesn't mean you have £1 million cash in the bank.
I know,
it's
but
assets.
Listen,
so he's saying he's pointing. The exact point he was trying to make is don't portray yourself as something. You're not living in a 350 grand house or a 500 grand house. You have a house which is worth over £1 million. On paper, your assets, you are classed as a millionaire. That's how it works. Again, that's why I also hate when people say, oh, well, he's a millionaire. He should be donating more money. Just because he's a millionaire don't mean he's got £1 million cash in the bank. A lot of these big corporations where people are saying, oh, well, they're massive corporations, they should be able to pay their staff. People don't understand. A lot of these massive corporations, they're run month to month. They are run. They're not that big. The cash flow is a lot more important than business that people don't understand.
Are you telling me my dear departed Nana, who passed away last year at 96 years old, she bought her house, she paid it off. Her house, if done up, was worth way over £1 million. You're telling me my nan was a millionaire? On
paperwork. On paper, yeah. On paper, her assets. That's her assets. So on paper, yes. She could have loaned money on that asset or bought vehicles or bought other properties on that property by its value, which technically would have made her a millionaire. If the building you live in that you're on the
but you know what? Miss one payment on your millionaire property. Miss 2 or 3, and you'll be kicked out and be quickly not a millionaire anymore.
Yeah, of course you will. But I'm talking about assets. I'm not talking about cash. There's a difference between cash rich and asset rich.
Well,
I know
to answer
people who I know I know people who have assets in the region of millions. They have properties and commercial properties and vehicles that are worth 2 mil. It doesn't mean they've got that money in their bank. If they don't work for 2 months, they're out on their arse. They're not cash rich.
I hear you. I mean, to answer your question in terms of what politician can we relate to, you know who I related to, and he's departed now, was a politician, a really great politician who fought in the war, was a hero. His son's not as nuanced or as endearing as him at all, old Hillary Benn, but his father, Tony Benn.
Tony Benn, yeah, yeah.
Tony Benn was an amazing man. He seemed to be a beautiful man. I admired him so much. I wrote him into my script, and I remember saying, if I don't make this film never did get made, but I remember saying at the time, and I probably wrote this in around 2005, Cal, because it was around when my son was born. I wrote it in between taking calls at work in the day job, and I wrote him into my script at the end. And he came out to support. And I thought, if I don't make this film soon, he's never going to be around to be in it. And now that film will never get made. And even if it did, he wouldn't be around. But Tony Benn was tempered. He was thoughtful. He was balanced. He was kind. He thought before he spoke. You couldn't, as much as the powers that be wanted to chastise him, it was very hard for them to, because he done what they didn't do. He went to war, he fought, he was patriotic, you know. He spoke up for England, but he also spoke up for human rights, and he didn't. I remember he was one of the few politicians, along with George Galloway, who I like George Galloway a lot, and he's Marmite for some people, but I think he's amazing. I love the way he speaks. I love the way he expresses himself. I love the way he defends the values that he believes in, you know. You know, he's a very godly person as well. I've got a lot in common with George Galloway, who's still living. But Tony Benn, who George Galloway also looked up to, George Galloway, Tony Benn, and our friend Piers Morgan, they spoke out against September 11th. They were the only few people that were saying, no, wait a minute, just not bomb the hell out of everybody to solve this. Let's speak about this. And they especially George Galloway, especially Tony Benn, those two, they proved to be right. So for me, someone like, you know, this is why I was for Jeremy Corbyn, not because I'm into Labour, because, you know, Tony Blair Witch Project certainly fucked up Labour with his new Labour. And I remember that because I was a student in university. But this is what the Labour people asked for, Cal. They didn't want Jeremy. I had a lot in common with Jeremy in terms of the way he kind of, people said he wasn't fit to run the country. We'll never know. And I always wondered what was their mathematical equation in terms of deducing and calculating he wouldn't be able to do that, as opposed to someone like what's the bat before Boris, what was her name, the one that
Theresa
just departed, Theresa May, and these kind of dragons, you know. For me, it was like someone like, I could see myself sitting down with a Jeremy Corbyn and having a beer with him. Of course, that doesn't mean he can run a country, but if he can't, who can? And so this is what Labour supporters asked for. They asked for this new guy. They asked for this guy that, you know, forgave Jimmy Savile and didn't want to look into, probably a friend of his, you know, allegedly, you know. I'm not saying that he was, you know what I mean? So this is what Labour
Tony
asked
Benn
for.
was Tony Benn was probably the Prime Minister we should have had but never had.
Of course he was, but he wouldn't be Prime Minister because he wouldn't have been Blair. He wouldn't have been a Boris. He wouldn't have been a Cameron. He would have been Tony Benn, and Tony Benn he seemed to want to do things in a more humane way and with a lot more love.
We live in a nation where you would have, well, unfortunately, if you had the two choices, probably would have Enoch Powell would have been Prime Minister over Tony Benn.
And
the rivers of blood.
Rivers of blood, you know. And he spoke about race mixing, you know, his famous speech in Rivers of Blood, and he was saying that, you know, if we don't, and he wasn't wrong. let's get something right here. He wasn't wrong in what he said. Yeah, yes, he was racist, but he wasn't wrong. He said if we continue this, White Britain is going to become Brown Britain. And white Britain is becoming brown Britain. But brown's better for you than white anyway. I mean, white sugar, no. Brown sugar, better. Brown rice, better. White rice, not as good. But, you know, brown bread, you know, you can keep going on and on and on. Brown's always better, you know. Try a sweet potato, which is closer to brown than a white potato. Much better for you. And you won't go to war. There won't be no potato war or famine.
Oh, Well, hey, if it wasn't for Christopher Columbus, we might not have them yams.
We might not. So maybe he gave us something. Although they would have been eating it, get a fabulous, and they would have been alive to eat it.
Yeah, exactly.
Alive.
Right. Let's
Mate,
end it. Let's end it there.
It's been epic.
All right. That's episode 3, guys. We're going to. I say we. I'm going to stick this on. Going to make the process of putting it on iTunes, Spotify now, Acast, and other podcast platforms. You don't have to listen on YouTube because I know it's difficult on YouTube. So yeah, we're going to start making that now. We'll be doing that at some point over the weekend. We'll be back. Adrian, when do you want to be back?
Let's be back, man. Let's be back. That was
Monday.
Monday, Tuesday,
Sunday, Monday.
Tuesday. Tuesday's good because I'm. Tuesday's good. Tuesday's very good, man.
Well, everyone have a good weekend. Hopefully we have some good news at the end of the week from our friend Boris. Hopefully this is all going to start to come to an end. I think they will relax things. Just quickly jump in here, but I do think the virus we all know is going to be around. But I think a lot of this has been down to not overwhelming the NHS.
I think so.
We need to get back to normal. People are going to continue to die and get sick, but if this had all happened at if we weren't on lockdown, supposedly what are we at 27,000 deaths? Well, imagine how much more that would have been if we were all out and about, and how much the NHS is struggling as it is at the moment. With everyone working there, love them guys. It was I don't know if you watched the programme on Channel 4 yesterday. It was actually quite hard.
I didn't.
But look, guys, I know it's a horrible situation, and I'm bored, so bored. Both the
I'm not bored.
You're not. Both the industries I work in are closed, so for me, it's nothing. I probably should get back into film. I know I should be writing. I know.
Come on, I'm writing. I've written hundreds of pages of script.
I've got some ideas, but I'll talk to you about it. Don't want Noel Clark stealing them, so I'll text them to you. And all your mates, don't want your mates stealing. Actually, I'll speak to you privately. Someone followed me on Instagram, but you're not friends with him. But he's friends, or he's followed by your family members. And he's got a blue tick. I don't know him, but he's got a blue tick. So he's obviously someone of some importance. But I was going to ask if you knew him. But I'll drop you a message. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back next week. And that's us. So like.
And remember,
share.
guys. Go on, Carl.
As I say, like, share, subscribe, leave comments. We're trying to do our best. Facebook's actually holding us back because we won't spend any money. There's a surprise. Our outreach of my post has drastically dropped, no matter how many times I share it, because we haven't spent
algorithms.
We haven't spent any money with them. So we really rely on everyone sharing it, please, and liking it and sharing it, because without that, we unfortunately can't. Without spending money, paying for the big corporations, paying for Mark Zuckerberg to, I don't know, whatever he's doing. But yeah, anyway, that's another story. So. Yeah, stay safe, guys. Adrian?
And remember, guys, Jesus wasn't white.
See you later, everyone. Bye.
Bye.